Okay, for 2.06 Module 2 project, you're going to be putting the software development lifecycle into practice to design your own program. They actually give you three different choices. You can create a wish list. You can create, say, a restaurant order form or receipt, or what they call your own coding adventure. The product that you'll be creating will resemble something like this, but of course it's going to be very unique since you're going to be creative and come up with your own idea for your project. Again, they do give you specific suggestions. Option one is a wish list, which is like you're ordering from a store and would be giving you a receipt at the end. You have to have at least three items that you ask the user for. You have to include the price of each one, and then you've got to come up with tax and a subtotal. And they give you, and shipping. They give you some values here to use for that. Let's Eat is an opportunity to create, say, a meal that would have an appetizer, an entree, a drink, dessert. Again, you would have to include something for tax and you would have to include something for tip. And then Programmer's Adventure, they actually give you a couple of suggestions down here. The main thing is you've got to ask for the user input, and when you do that, you're asking for at least three numeric values. You can ask for their name and you can ask for other input, but at a minimum, you have to ask them for three numeric values. You have to show that you know how to use the int and float functions. You'll need to show that you can do math calculations, including the proper order of operations, because you're going to have to figure out tax and you're going to have to come up with a subtotal and a total. Then to create your output or your printout, you'll be using the str function, right? So let's look at a sample in the idle. Okay, so what I did was I created a receipt for a restaurant. Don't forget at the top, as always, you need the name, the date, and the purpose of the program in comment tags. You'll define the main function. I defined the main function. I went ahead and gave a print statement at the beginning that thanks them for ordering at Joe's Diner, but you could have the name of your restaurant or anything that you think that would be appropriate there. And then I'm going to ask the user for input. When I ask for input, in this case, I'm going to ask them what appetizer they would like, and I'm giving them a choice so they can choose one or the other. I'm assigning it to the variable appetizer, and I'm just getting a string input, so all I need is input. Then there's two other values I'm going to be asking for each of three things. One, I'm going to be asking for the price, and second, I'm going to ask them how much they want to order. So if you think about it, you know that prices always can include decimals because we have dollars and cents. So that's an appropriate place for me to use the float data type. On the other hand, I'm not going to order half of an appetizer. I'm either going to order it or not. So for the number of items, I'm going to use an int. Okay? And then I make sure you're giving yourself descriptive variable names because that always makes it easier when you go back to figure out your calculations. So what I've done is I've got three things that they can order: an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. I'm asking them the price of each one. So I have price one, price two, price three, and then how many they want of each item. And again, I've grouped it. Number one are all the appetizer things, twos are all the entrees, threes are all the desserts. Then I've got in my comment tags, I'm going to go ahead and remind myself that I've got to calculate the subtotal, tax, and the total cost. The sales tax is going to be 6.5% because they gave me that amount to use. So I have a variable that's tax percent equals, and it's 0.065. Don't forget that zero. You don't want to be charging 65% for taxes. You just want 6.5%. And since this is a restaurant, there's a 20% tip, which would be tip equals 0.20. right? Now I've got to come up, now I've actually got to do my processing. So my appetizer total is going to be the price that the end user assigns to price one times however many they choose to order. Entree, the price of the entree times however many they choose to order, and so on and so forth. My subtotal will be the appetizer total, entree total, and dessert total added together. Then I've got to add my tax, add my tip, and finally I get my order total. And making a neat receipt at this point where notice that you can put extra lines, you can use asterisks or things to create a line in your receipt, but you may have to play around a little bit to get items to kind of line up. Let's run the program. I'm going to run it. What appetizer would I like? So I'm going to put in soup. How much is the appetizer going to cost? Notice I can put in a decimal amount. How many do I want? I can put 4. What entree would I like? And finally, dessert. And there we go. All right, and then that gives me my receipt. Okay, and that's really all there is to it. Make sure that you include pseudocode because this is going to take a bit of planning to make everything come out right. And to include all the elements that they're asking you to include in the assignment, and then reflect on what went right, what went wrong. I know for myself, it took me a little bit of playing around with the spacing in the quote marks to make this line up reasonably. Also, as always, there's the opportunity to forget a closing parentheses or a quotation mark in the print statements. There's always the possibility that you might switch input and or int and float and get an error then when you're actually practicing or entering the data in the program. So there's all those kinds of things that can potentially go wrong. Don't panic if at first your program doesn't run. Just break it down, read the error message, and then walk back and try to correct it line by line. If you have any questions or you're stuck on this, please don't hesitate to give me a call.